I'm reading from Luke chapter 2, verse 41. Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. And when he became 12, they went up there according to the custom of the feast. And as they were returning after spending the full number of days, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents were unaware of it, but supposed him to be in the caravan, and went a day's journey. And they began looking for him among their relatives and acquaintances. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem looking for him. Then after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When they saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us this way? Behold, your father and I have been anxiously looking for you." And he said to them, "Why is it that you were looking for me? Did you not know that I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand the statement which he had made to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth. And he continued in subjection to them, and his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. So I want to talk about training children and use this example. I think Jesus is giving us an example here. A lot of times we don't look at his life as an example for us to follow. We see his teaching. We know we have to follow his teaching, but a lot of people don't look at his life as an example to follow. They see it is just relative to him and him only. And so I want to address this. You know, I was reading in the Lancaster Journal, the Southern Baptists have had a zero growth in their church for the last 7 years. I was preaching in an Assembly of God church here this year and picked up one of their magazines, and their growth is also zero the last decade. And so there's your two biggest denominations, probably your fastest growing denominations, Southern Baptist and Assembly of God. And both of them are having, this last decade, have had no growth. So my thinking, and I don't think it's very difficult to understand why that's the case. And I don't think it's a hard, difficult question to answer. I think where we're losing out is on the children. I think that's, everybody understands that. I was reading a statement from Vishal Mangalwadi from India here recently, and he was making the same point that the American church is having a really difficult time dealing with our culture, and he saw the answer is training children in local churches. And he's making a big political economic statement, but his answer to that statement is teaching children. And I think that's true. I think that the reason we're not having growth in the churches is because we're losing the families. And even if we bring people in, the loss of the children, and I've read anywhere from 60, 80 to 90% of church youth leave the church by the time they're in college. And so you can't have that because the impact that has on the church is tremendous. And so I was to look at Jesus' comment here, or in Luke here, is Jesus finds, he's 12 years old, and he finds himself in the temple studying with the leaders in the temple. And I'm guessing, since this is the only picture we have of him as a youth, it's the only one the Bible gives to us, is that his youth was spent either working with his father, or it was spent in the synagogue or the temple talking to those people who knew the Torah and the prophets, and he was learning. And as he was learning from these people, he was growing in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men. And our idea in America is to train our children in secularism until they get to be 18 or 19 or 20, and then we want to train them. We want to put them into discipleship school at 18. Well, Jesus, by the time he was 12, he was already in discipleship school. And I think that's a very important point for us to see. If you really want to raise up disciples, children who are disciples of Jesus, you have to start at a much, much earlier age than 18 or 20. And I would even submit that it's even earlier than 12. Because I think the picture we have of Jesus here at 12, he's already been in discipleship his whole life at that point, and is one of discipleship where he's being trained by his family, but he's also in the synagogue. In fact, when he comes to Nazareth and he enters his hometown synagogue, he just walks right in and starts reading, as was his custom. So he has grown up in the synagogue as a youth and as a young man, and as a young man, he is studying with the leaders of the synagogue, the teachers, and that's where he's being trained. And he's part. I think our method in America right now is to start earlier and earlier and earlier with putting children in secular schools, state schools, and try to counter that, balance that state school. We even start as early as 4 now. Obama has a big push right now to get 4-year-olds in kindergarten, and as part of the new training thing, we've already got them at 5, and they start school at 6, and so if we get down to 4, and so they're training them in a secular worldview, and then by the time they're in high school, they're trained in complete secular education. And we think we're going to balance that by having Sunday school and a youth group. Sunday school in America is still predominantly a 55-minute program, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon maybe, where we bring in, basic Sunday school, color books and things like that, the curriculum that children we want to train our young people with these coloring books and that. And that 55 minutes, and then when they get a little older in junior high, we put them in a youth group, which ends up being about an hour, maybe even a 2-hour program once a week. And that program is going to be successful at keeping the secular education in check. And I'm just going to submit that that's just totally impractical. I find that is unbelievable at times, that people expect that the tools we have to train children are sufficient to reach children who are being trained in a secular school. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 1, and I think it expresses this sentiment really well. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree firmly planted in streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. Now, I find that if you want children that are giving fruit, that are yielding fruit, and that are prospering spiritually and physically, we have to train them, as the psalmist says, we have to train them with people who are righteous and who are not scoffers. And I know so much of secular education is being trained by people who do not believe or who even scoff and mock at the Christian faith. And I was reading that in the newspaper just today. One of the popular astrophysicists was scoffing at Christians who believe a certain thing, and he basically said the Christian people need to stay out of education, they need to stay out of science, and they need just to stay away from children. And I said, you want those people training your children? How blessed is a man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. Well, that's okay if I don't do it, but then I'll make my children do that. My children can sit in the path of the wicked and sit in the seat of scoffers as they scoff and mock the Christian faith day after day after day after day. I work with young people, and especially I work a lot with refugees. And one of the things that the refugees often come to me, and one of the great disappointments, and I've been told this over and over again, one of the things that they were so looking forward to when they finally arrived at the United States was they wanted to go to schools where they could study the Bible, where they could study with Christians who would show them what the Bible teaches. And they were so disappointed when they came here. We put them in our state schools, and these young people from Burma and Nepal and Pakistan and other places are not able to study the Bible or with Christian teachers. And they told me to themselves, they said, this is a great disappointment to them. The church faces this. We think that, let's just take a look at the tools we have to train our children. Let's take Sunday school. What is Sunday school? Sunday school was a program designed in the 17th and 18th century during, Charles Dickens' days, the Pickwick Papers and other books there, where before labor laws were in place and children, orphans and that, worked in the factories and in the industrial community. And these children that worked for almost nothing, they worked in these big factories. On Sunday, the blue laws shut down the factories, and so the children had nowhere to go. And so in England, and especially in England, where Sunday school was developed, those children on Sunday morning were brought into the church because they were wandering the streets. They were brought into the church. They were fed in the morning. They were fed breakfast in the morning, and they were put into a class to train them to read. And by the time the church people arrived at the school, the children were on a break. Now, I'm not really sure whether, I'm certain there was different cases where some of the children would go to church, but oftentimes they would just take a break. And then after the church was over and the church people had gone home, the children reassembled for the rest of the day, and they would continue their education. So they start like in the morning, 8, 9 o'clock, and they would go till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon every Sunday. And the churches would hire teachers called Sunday school teachers to train these non-churched children of poor and orphans, to train them to read. And especially, of course, they were reading the Bible. That was the point, was to teach them to read, but also to read the Scripture and to lead them to Christ. But the Sunday school was predominantly an evangelistic tool for the children that were not involved in the church. The church children were trained in their parochial schools and at home. And so this is the format that we have for Sunday school, is an evangelist tool. And we've taken that format, and now we are training our children. But the thing is, the format now is only 55 minutes. It's not 4 or 5 hours. And so that's why it doesn't work for that. So we want to think about that. Now we see that Jesus, when he's 12, he is spending time in the church with the people who teach in the church. And if we want to really reach our children, we need to look at his model.